is now being recorded. I would like to hand it over to Michelle Rich and have her introduce herself and begin our presentation today, which is on advocacy.
Great. Thanks, Indira. Hi, everyone. This is Michelle Rich with the Iowa After School Alliance, and just a little background on what the IAA does related to advocacy. We've long been an after-school network that has done a lot of work within policy. Across the after-school networks across the country, they have different areas of strengths and focus. And as you probably know, the Iowa After School Alliance has three major goal areas that are consistent across all networks. That includes partnership development, quality work, which we do a lot with U.S. 21st Century Community Learning Centers, and then work around policy. There are a lot of networks that are very good at quality activities and do a lot around that. Iowa has always been a policy. And so have a lot of advice around advocacy. Is a very can give you some examples. Also talk about what we see for the 2015 legislative session, and hopefully you'll take away from this this webinar today some strategies that you can start implementing right away to advocate for your program. So let's talk about just basically what is advocacy. When we talk about advocacy, we're talking very generally. Basically, what advocacy is education. It's around informing stakeholders and stakeholders. But stakeholders in your community, or stakeholders in your program, or policymakers in any area. You're informing them of your particular issues or needs or priorities. Advocacy can be around legislative or administrative policy, or it doesn't necessarily have to do with a policy at all. It can just be informing and educating people around what you're doing. So an example of this might be, for instance, requesting financial or leadership support for your program from being council. Or it could be around educating legislators on what you do. Or it might be informing or educating your own staff or school personnel around the outcomes that you're seeing. All of this is in an effort to build support, whether that be financial or leadership support for your program. That's what advocacy is. You're probably already doing a lot of advocacy on a daily basis. This presentation hopefully will very and broad-based support for your program. I know a lot of people equate advocacy with lobbying and vice versa. And advocacy really is a lot more general than lobbying. And so I wanted to quickly define lobbying and show how it is different from advocacy. We'll be talking about advocacy for this presentation. But lobbying really is much more specific, and it's around influencing elected officials' viewpoints on specific legislation. And a lot of people think that lobbying is illegal for nonprofits. It's not illegal. It's just restricted, usually. Now, usually using federal dollars for lobbying specifically is off limits. But for a lot of funders, they also restrict lobbying because how um, how nonprofits show that they're they're not a lobbying or they're not doing lobbying is it's more of a legal it's a legal issue, but they call it the part test. So it's more around time. And so if you can show that you're not spending most of your time on lobbying activities, then it's not you're not going to get in trouble. So a lot of big don't lobby because they can't control all of the time that's spent by all of their grantees out there. Um, so lobbying really isn't a bad um, it's not illegal, and a lot of professional associations take on this role. So, for instance, in education, School Administrators of Iowa and the State Education Association are very active in policy and in the state legislature when it's in session. They do have contract lobbyists that are there monitoring legislation and taking positions on specific legislation. So later we'll talk about how to be involved in more of that type of advocacy. And um, and it one of the recommendations is getting involved with professional associations that do have staff designated to track and lobby policy. So you can see that lobbying is very specific, and when we talk about advocacy, it's much more general. We're not talking about partisan activities at all, just very general education of stakeholders. And really, I want you to take it on as your obligation to reach out to policymakers and other stakeholders to keep them up to date on what you're doing. It's very important that people with the power to make high level decisions know the needs of their community. And that's really the behind Representative really helping her to see the connection between STEM and after school, and how after school is a venue for the goals of the advisory council, which is to get kids interested in STEM. We had her come to a program. This is a 21st century program at a time when they were doing STEM, and there was media there, and we made sure that others were invited. And that people knew about this, so we could get a little bit more bang for our buck, essentially, with this limited time that the lieutenant governor could be at the program. Got plenty of pictures, and we still share them out. Site visits are always the best way to tell your story of your program, so they can see it in action. A few other ways to support advocacy include communication materials. For instance, a few of the files that we've provided that you can download are examples of advocacy materials. And if I can, I'll try pulling up one of the examples. Let's do CFUM here. So I want to, someone's phone is not on mute, so we're hearing a lot of background noise. Thank you. All right. this is an example of a great communication piece that can be used in advocacy. And this was data that was collected for a profile of a summer program. And this piece talks about just the basics, so people have of have context for the program and what we're speaking of. Um, it sets up the needs of the community. So what what community needs or um, environmental conditions is the program attempting to alleviate. Um, it gives a little bit more information about the program structure, and then it goes into sharing the impact. This piece specifically is around replication. So really, this is designed to advocate for this model of summer program to be replicated. But it shares some really powerful data around the program impact, and then it also shares the position of the principal of the school. And it's, for a lot of stakeholders, that's going to be a very strong strong voice for getting across your message. And here in a little bit, we'll talk about some of the steps to go through to decide what kind of advocacy to take on. But but for most stakeholders, the support of the principal and showing that is going to be a very strong message. Right. Going back to some of the other um, the other activities for advocacy. A lot of what we do is personal and done through it about the importance of just one-on-one uh, relationship building and advocacy through one-on-one um, one-on-one meetings or sit downs or even informal meetings. That we have if we run uh, run into someone when you talk about implementation, your stakeholders might change a little bit. So you might have to then target teachers or um, even target your internal staff when you're talking about the implementation side. But let's consider now that we're just starting the conversation around data sharing. So our target really is school administrators. And then finally, what's the best venue to reach our audience to convey the message? And in this case, you would probably say that this isn't the kind of situation where you want to be very public. And I would say yes and no. I think this is a case where those one-on-ones are going to be critical, but also consider that it might be beneficial to get some media about your program based on the data that you're tracking currently. So I would hope that even if you're not getting the school-based data on proficiency, the academic side, or the behavioral side, you at least have some data that you're tracking internally that you can share. Imagine what kind of ammunition. It would give you if you had a really news article about um, the improvements that you've been able to show by tracking just the reading levels within your program and get them to come out so you can have have and while as you make the connections with school administrators. So think about the different ways that you can be um, relaying your message that might be somewhat non-traditional or something that you might not otherwise do. But I think I think those strategies really complement each other to give you the most leverage for your message. An important part of that advocacy is going to be honing your argument. I guess, to get your point across. And we have developed a process called message mapping, and it's not original to the IAA or SPPG, but we've used it with folks before, and it's been pretty useful. And so I want to walk us through message mapping around this issue. So I'm going to pull up the message map so you can so we can walk through the process. This is what a message map looks like, and what it does is helps you structure your argument, essentially, or your message. What it does is it makes you identify 3 high-level key messages that support your goal, and then also has you identify supporting facts for each of those messages. So what it helps you do is create essentially an outline for a conversation. And this really is applicable to any type of advocacy messaging that you're going to do, whether it be with the school administrator, like in this case, or with your state legislator, if there's are to advocate in support of, or it could just be a way to create an argument for your program. So really, you can use this in any way. Now, let's think around this scenario and um, and go through I did some brainstorming before this session, and um, and I think I came up with some pretty good high level key messages. So the scenario once again is that we need data to better support students that are participating in my program, and also to show impact of the programming that we're doing with students. So first off, that first message is that in communication with the school administrator, you need to just show that you have that to help students with homework completion or instructional support, if that's what's needed. So that's the first one, that we can give students extra time for homework or instructional support. But we need the data. We need data to know what the kids need. That's the first high-level message. Supporting facts, just basically, this really isn't intended to get overly complicated. It really is designed to be outlined. So keeping it as simple as possible, I think a good example of a supporting fact for this message would be um, 3:30 and 4:30. That's a chunk of time where students can have this this additional support if they need it. Then the second supporting fact might be that students and parents are already asking for this support. So we have the demand for it, and we have the time. And then finally, the third supporting fact for this message, that you give them the time and it's built into your program schedule, is that perhaps you can find some school-specific data around proficiency needs or the achievement gaps So you can you can say, look, we have the ability to meet this particular need of the school. So it looks like kids really need that extra support in math because we're not meeting our goals. We've got the time where we can do that. So you're saying, I know you've got this need. We have parents and students asking for it, and we got the time. But that's not um, the only message that you can give for, or not the only message around this argument. We really can start filling it in a little bit more and making it a little bit more well-rounded. The second key message might be around social and emotional learning and student engagement. So let's say that not only can we give students the extra time they need in a particular area, but our program also supports their social and emotional learning, and we need data for or behavior, or in some cases, some are also using other engagement, um, other measures of engagement. And so, um, so I think this is another area where after-school programs can have an impact. So this really is around the social and emotional. Supporting facts here. If you have particular program goals related to social and emotional learning or supports, this is a place to share it. If you provide any staff training around relationships and engagement, that might be something to share. Or providing an example of programming that supports the social and emotional learning of students. And then finally, much like that first key message, if your school has particular data points on referrals, or maybe they've prioritized this in their overall school planning, this is a time to show, look, we know that the school has this as an identified need. We have ways that we're supporting that in the program. But again, we need that data to show that our interventions are helping with this. Finally, a third key message. If in some cases you have ways of tracking your own data internally, for instance, if you're doing literacy supports to students and you might be tracking reading levels, a third message to round this out might be that you've seen improvements in the reading levels. Now you'd like to make the connection between those improvements and proficiency gains. So a way to make that connection. So your three main messages for this school administrator to share student data with you is that, first off, you've got the time to give students that extra support if they need it, but you need to know what students need. Second, that social and emotional piece, you really like that school data in order to show that that you're making that impact in behavior and engagement. And then finally, you want to see that your program is having an impact on proficiency levels as well. You already know that you're making those gains in reading levels. Now you want to make that connection to proficiency. Some supporting facts around the third key message is that you might share how you track the reading levels, so that process and what you're using, hopefully the same as the schools. Some examples of the second supporting fact might be examples of activities that you're doing in order to get those reading levels to move up. And it might not be a literacy focused activity. It might be in other ways that you're supporting reading, kids reading and writing. And then finally, again, if there is, if you can share that data on how many students participating in your program have improved their or progressed in their reading level, share that and say, look, we have these results already. Now it's just now we just want to see if according to the measures you use, we're translating that into increased proficiency. So once you've completed this message map, you have a really great outline for any kind of conversation, and it's something that that we use for putting together our communication materials and planning for some of those advocacy conversations. This is really great for those one-on-ones. It's also good for presentations that you might have or any of the media that you might do. It's just a really great way to outline your messaging. Any questions on the message map? All right. We in the files there is the message map, so you can access the PDF and print that out and use it. We have a few other resources, and the IAA can help a lot with the advocacy that you're either currently doing or if you have any plans to do any specific advocacy. Of course, we do a lot of work around session. So we do have each year we have it's in the past it's been breakfast, but this year we're doing an afternoon, a kind of an after-school snack is what we're calling it. It's one day where we have providers and other supporters of after school come and speak with legislators. And it really is intended to share what's happening at the local level. So our legislators can hear that in communities this is needed, and that usually there is a common message that resources are tough to come by for after school. Other things that the IAA can help with around advocacy